not everything you put out is gonna go viral. Like it definitely didn't happen to me because there's so many successful story of somebody started a YouTube channel a couple months, they hit tens of thousands or like a million subscribers. That's always being promoted because it's big. People like to see that kind of successful overnight story. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important to kind of feel a little bit grounded that that's not going to happen to most of people. If it happened to you, great. I'm not going to say never going to happen.
Hi, Eric. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, I wanted to invite you on because we both practice watercolor. We're both watercolor artists, but the way we approach it and the way we approach monetizing our art is quite different. I wanted to just show people that there are different options even when you're doing or practicing the same medium as an artist. Eric he has a day job and he also is a YouTuber. You used to teach watercolor in person, but you now have a YouTube channel where you teach people watercolor as well. So I'll let you do a little intro.
I'm Eric. I have a YouTube channel called Cafe Watercolor. You can find me on YouTube. My main job, my day job, is a video game artist who's focusing on creating backgrounds for video games. Right now, I'm working on some first-person shooter games, so backgrounds, so mostly kind of landscape, big vista, that kind of stuff. So that's my day job. So on the side, I do watercolor. So sort of like a hobby at the time, but I started a YouTube channel and I starting to share my approach of painting and just process and everything. And I actually started to selling courses doing watercolor. The only course that I have right now is called Watercolor Essential, which is just kind of like a system to guide people from fundamental drawing to basic watercolor to some advanced knowledge such as composition and things like that. So it's like a pretty complete system. And I am also mostly just doing tutorials on YouTube and mostly for free and stuff. I am planning to have like a membership program so I can interact with people kind of one-on-one basis, or at least like a little bit more interactive. So Cathy mentioned that I teach watercolor in person. That's only actually a few times in local art store because I have a family with 3 small kids, so traveling is not really something that I do a lot without bringing my family with me. So mostly just something local, and again, the state of the world today is not really easy to do a in-person workshop. So online is mostly what I do.
As a silver lining to the state of the world since last year, like your YouTube channel has grown as well. I mean, it wasn't an overnight success. We can talk more about that later, but you've grown to a very successful YouTube channel with, last I checked, was like 125,000 subscribers. Just a few more than mine. No, a lot more than mine. But we'll talk more about that too, about like how your approach. Thanks. I appreciate the encouragement. So back up a little bit. So you're a video game designer, specifically background design. How did it bridge over to watercolor?
Yeah, so it's kind of back to my root actually. When I was in college, I was illustration major, and back in the days, that was early 2000.
Which school did you go to?
Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, great school, really expensive though, so I have mixed feeling about that. But anyways, I was an illustration major, but back in the days, it's mostly more like a traditional approach. So I work with oil, acrylic, doing some editorial pieces, and I'm not saying that those are not viable now, but not many of us are reading magazines, and not many of them are hiring illustrators. And if they do, they have a lot of people that they've been working with for decades. So they will usually just go to those. After I graduated, I started to I need to do something else. So I started to teach myself Photoshop and things like that. I didn't learn all that much in terms of digital tools when I was in college. It's a lot more traditional.
And was it because of the time you went to school, or it's just
a little bit of both. So I actually wanted to do entertainment, so movies, video games, and things like that. So they told me that I should go into illustration, which is a false. If you want to do that, the better way to go is industrial design. That sounds boring, but a lot of the design works, that's something like concept design and stuff, it takes a lot of industrial design knowledge to do it. So a lot of great concept artists, they are actually industrial design background, so they have very very solid drawing skill. They can draw like almost perfect looking perspective freehands, and they
Okay.
have very good sense of design when it comes to design language, shape design, and things like that. Illustration is more about just bringing your idea out visually instead of designing an idea somebody else's have, which is what concept artist is mostly good at. When I went into it, I still enjoyed it, but I just kind of got lost in it, and I work with way more traditional media than other major actually. So a lot of the digital skill I learned a little bit in school, but after I graduated, I start to do more on Photoshop and things like that. I try to get myself into it, and I try to learn Flash a little bit as well. So that kind of got me into the video editing stuff because Flash, has some similarity with After Effects and so on.
Do you think that your art degree still helped with you getting a job in video gaming? Or
No,
did it set a base? Not at all. It was just mainly what you learned after, what you taught
I'll
yourself.
say yeah. Also depends on the company. And what I heard is that if you apply a job in like Nintendo, they will still looking at your degree, probably because it's a Japanese company background. But for most of the game studio, they don't really care about your degree. They will look at it, I guess, but they tend to look at it more on your about your portfolio and your experience. And some of the video game company, they'll actually give you like an art test or something.
Yeah.
I never really got any of that, lucky me, but they will try to do that, give you like an assignment, like a maybe like a fake assignment or something like that, and you can do it over a week, and they'll see how you do. After I graduated and I start to learn digital work, I used to work with like a little design studio doing some DVD menu when that was still a thing. So that's where I learned After Effects and things like that. And after I work about like 9 months or so, I really want to go just do entertainment stuff. So I start to learn more about it. I got into it game industry as a QA tester, which is like a game tester. It's mostly focusing on language though. So because I am a native Mandarin speaker, so I kind of check their translation and things like that. And I try to learn about concept art at the side. So, and I started to build my portfolio that way, and that kind of got me into the industry. But so after I got into the industry for about like a year or two, I start to miss doing traditional stuff a lot because you stare at the computer for 8 hours a day. After you're done with that, I feel like I want to get back to just like the nice feeling of just painting brush
With your
on
hands, yeah.
paper and stuff. And I don't have my oil stuff anymore. It was long gone. And with little kids at home, I don't want to have like an oil. Kind of, a little bit more toxic, I would say, and just like a lot of stronger smell.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it takes forever to dry. So if somebody go touch it, and it's just gonna ruin it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, my taste also changed. I like the feeling of watercolor a lot better too, just like the more transparent look, like the matte feeling of it. So I start to kind of got into watercolor after watching some artists and tutorials online, and start to paint watercolor on the side. At the beginning, I thought it was just, it's just kind of for fun, and maybe eventually if I can paint some nice looking paintings, I might sell it, something like a side job, like a side hustle. Being a YouTuber is not my first intention though, so yeah, that something happened kind of leads to that.
So when you started painting watercolor again, were you sharing them online?
Yeah, so in the beginning, mostly just Facebook among my friends and stuff. I don't think I'm good enough to share on Instagram. Later on, I realized that you're never good enough. At least I feel
To
like I'm never good
yourself,
enough.
you're
So
never good
yeah,
enough. Yeah.
so just start somewhere.
Did your illustration skills or your concept design, video concept design skills transfer over to watercolor?
Yeah, it does contribute quite a bit into watercolor. So the medium itself, that's definitely something I need to learn and get used to. Painting with watercolor is really different from almost any other medium, different from oil, acrylic, or even digital. But some of the fundamental concept is the same. So things like perspective, lighting, composition, because I do mostly scenery paintings, some portrait as well, but even with portrait, I have some formal training during my art school years drawing heads. Yeah, I draw like 500 head in one of the in one of the terms. It kind of was a nightmare, but it did give me a head start when I want to get into those. So still a little bit of adjustment to transfer from doing mainly digital work to traditional again, especially watercolor. It's not something you can really fix. With oil, you can just paint over that. With acrylic, you can just paint over that. Watercolor, if you
Layers
mess
work
it up,
very differently
yeah.
in watercolor.
Watercolor, if you mess it up, there's not a lot of places you can go to fix things up unless you're painting darker layers later.
Unless it's
So
still wet too.
yeah, so it's a little bit different of mindset in terms of the way it works, but a lot of the fundamental knowledge, it does really come into play. And especially when it comes to like video game art, creating drama is something that's very big on video gaming. So it's different sense of scale, lighting, how do you tell story visually. That's something that I can bring that knowledge over to my watercolor painting. Now, my watercolor painting is not like fantasy theme. It's still based on real world. You know, a lot of time I go to a scenery, take a photo, and things like that. But yeah, all those knowledge kind of come into play and contribute to what I do.
You know, even though your main job is creative, you needed another creative outlet from your creative job because it's different when you're working for someone else, right? Day job aside, what are different ways that you are generating income as a watercolor artist?
In the beginning, I just thought that if I can sell like a few paintings, that would be good, because that time I was still focusing on just building my day job career. Looking back, it's probably like 5 to 6 years ago. Yeah, and I started my YouTube channel about like 5 years ago.
How did you cross over from practicing to teaching?
So I think that's something everybody needs to go through, and that imposter syndrome. You know, when I go to my day job, there's a lot of talented artists there as well, and a lot of them do have a side hustle or they want to have some passive income. So most of them, they want to utilize what they already know, which is digital art. So they will sell tutorials on Gumroad and things like that. In the beginning, I just thought, okay, I start to make some decent painting after maybe like a year or two into this medium. My first step is just to contact local art store, which is Daniel Smith's, by the way. They sell pretty good watercolor paint. Contacted them and I showed them my work. Am I good enough to do like a free demo there or something like that? And they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you're welcome to come here and just do a free demo. We'll give you $100 store credit for that." And I was like, "Great, I can get free paint."
Oh yeah, that's great.
So like
That's
I
basically
don't
cash because you're
yeah
gonna
so
spend it for sure.
yeah so I just thought you know what, I'll just make a photo myself, and if I don't do it well, whatever, I still get free paint. So and after I do it for once or twice, and then the participant who went there actually said they got quite a bit out of it, and I start to teach like a workshop there, and got a little bit of experience in that. So that kind of gives me some confident boost that okay, I can do it, and as long as my target audience is not people who are already really experienced, I can target a little bit people was more in like a beginning stage. The experience as a beginner is still pretty fresh in my mind because I painted for 2 to 3 years.
Did you feel like teaching watercolor made you a better artist in practice?
I think it does in terms of really just contextualize what's going through my mind, because as I paint, I try to explain the process, and it really helps me to really focus on what I'm doing and try to be more purposeful in my approach.
Yeah, I watched your video on Wet on Wet. I thought that one was really great. You explained it in the way that I hadn't heard before. It's conceptual, but it's also practical. So
Yeah,
I
I'm trying.
recommend
Yeah,
people watch.
yeah, I'm trying to do it in a way that kind of makes sense. Just what's the like a physical property of watercolor and how do we work with it, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think personally, do like teaching quite a bit. I like to explain things. When I started a YouTube channel, my only purpose was just to share some painting process and see if people are interested in the painting that I painted.
Did you have plans to make YouTube as an additional income stream?
No, not really. So even today, I still consider YouTube as a kind of like a free marketing platform, if you would. Especially for YouTube, I think for me is a really great way because I have prior experience of video making and doing video editing, so I really utilize the skill that I learned previously, kind of integrate with what I know into video format. Ad revenue is really really little. I never really thought about it. I actually didn't turn on any ad until I reached like 50,000 or something like that.
Huh.
I personally don't like ad myself. I try to not to do that as much. So I actually don't make that much ad revenues. My main source of income is course selling, commission, and painting selling and stuff.
Do you feel like YouTube has brought you customers to your commission and original purchase?
I would say YouTube bring me more student that way because people go on YouTube to learn about information. Aside from wanting to be entertained, a lot of people go to YouTube to search for tutorials. When they came to my channel, they enjoy what I have to offer and they want to go a little bit deeper. They some of them start to sign up, enroll to the course, and they start to learn more. In terms of the commission and original, some student bought original from me because they like my painting. But I would say that most of the commission requests I got, they just found me on Google.
Ad revenue is not an important factor to you. You do generate some, but it's kind of a afterthought. You're still doing commissions and you're selling originals. I noticed that you don't release like collections. Do you?
Not really, because I paint kind of randomly. I usually just try to paint whatever I kind of feel like painting. Doing it as a side job, my time is a little bit limited, so I will pick and choose how I want to spend my quote unquote extra time. If I feel like painting a specific scenery right now, I'll just do that.
With your tutorials, each time you paint, at least it gets, some ad revenue. And sometimes maybe people would even buy the original.
Yeah, so each time I put out a video, I do, I get more subscribers, and yeah, everything you put out just kind of like a snowball effect. It would just kind of work together.
I want to learn more about your YouTube growth journey. You said you started 5 years ago.
Like it says I started my channel around 2015, but I didn't put out any videos, zero for the longest time. So yeah, I started to put out like a few videos at the end of 2016. Yeah, I think I got my first 10K probably around here. I can't be quite sure, but you started to get a little bit more like subscriber here and there. Like one day I got like 100 something subscriber, which is great. I started to
Oh,
put
this is
out.
daily.
It started to grow a lot faster since like the end of 2019. That's when I start to focus more on just creating like a more focused content. So like specific tips and things like that. I think last year is definitely like a special year because everybody's staying at home looking for stuff to learn. So last year grows the most. Okay.
So you added 65.7K just last year. Yeah, you were at around 50 then before
Yeah.
that. So you doubled basically
Yeah.
in 1 year.
But if you look at the ad revenue lifetime, I just that's just like 4.8K. It's not that much. It's not that much.
You're now using this YouTube channel as a marketing channel for your course. You're not even promoting it that aggressively. That's generating way more income than your YouTube ad revenue, right? Can you talk more about that? Like when did you launch it and what's that growth like?
It was actually back in 2017.
Oh.
And that's like the first version of the course. I actually updated almost completely. Got better filming equipment and stuff, so I updated the course. But in the beginning, I actually tried to do like proper launch. Like I tried to have like a launch window, like an enrollment window, so people will sign up. And there's like a 6 months or so. I actually make it to like 2 different tiers and things like that. And in the beginning, it was like the second tier is I actually create like a Slack group for people to go in and watch live demo and things like that. And it takes a lot of time, and I still have a day job, so I put a halt on that. I don't have that anymore, but I still just selling the basic tier, which is just all the pre-recorded videos, about like 40 some lessons or stuff, and that's still selling kind of passively. Right now, you can go to cafewatercolor.com, and there's like a sign up tab on the right. You can go up there.
Okay.
But after I getting like a couple thousands of the feedback, of the sign up, and I kind of categorize 4 different struggles that most people have, probably like 80% of people have. So either they're a beginner or they want to paint looser because they're too tight, they try to focus on detail too much, or they have some problem with color mixing, or or just water and paint ratios. And I actually make individual videos to respond to each one of that as they sign up. So I try to make it as personal as possible because I'm
Hmm.
not able to reply every single email that I get as much as I wanted to. But I feel like it's just for me to try to get them to know me a little bit better, get me to know my content a little bit more, and for
Hmm.
them to realize that's really for them or not. And after they go through that, it's like, okay, I want to learn more. I realize that I need this, and that. And so I packaged everything together as a watercolor course. And one of the things I really keen on having it in my course is to teach people fundamental drawings, things like perspective and lightings and basic primitive structure and things like that. Because those are the things that I realize doesn't really offer in any of the watercolor workshop because simply there's not enough time. But that's also across the board, a lot of students are lacking. So that's why I started to put that in.
That's
So that's
true.
something that I want to offer to people
That's
using
true.
complete.
You can learn all the techniques of watercolor, but if you can't draw a person proportionally or like an elephant
Mhm.
proportionally, then
Yeah,
yeah, it
and
doesn't,
for
it's still
like,
going to look funny.
yeah, and like a scenery, you got the perspective way off or the
Mm.
scale is wrong. It will look kind of weird. Yeah, after I start my doing like a more personal funnel and stuff, and especially last year, I started to generate a lot more income because people who go through the email series, they understand more about what I have to offer than if I just simply say, here, by the way, I have a course, you can go enroll. Yeah, so I think that's something that I really learned from that year's experience.
Yeah, there's also something to be said about your course. I'm sure is a lot more succinct and like you've synthesized information in a linear flow for them, right? So
Hmm.
they can easily grab the areas they want to improve on. Where someone wants to really take this a little more seriously, whether as
Right.
a hobbyist or professional, then I think a course has value there. But then your YouTube channel helps to build that trust.
Hmm.
2020 seemed like a successful year for your
Yeah.
courses. Anything you can share?
I try to price my course kind of related to what I personally paid for in-person workshop. Some of the in-person workshop I pay for like $500 for like a 3-day workshop
With like
with
a master though,
with
with
like a master, yeah.
Mhm.
And but on top of that, I need to pay for traveling. They're not always here in Seattle, and I need to pay
Yeah.
for traveling and like a Airbnb hotel, whatever. So for people just kind of don't want to travel and they want to learn the fundamental, the basic stuff, so they can get more out of when they one day sign up for like those master course. I think that's where I position my course as. It's something that people can kind of get into it to reach like an intermediate level so they can get more when they are
Hmm.
ready to learn from like a more advanced, learn from master. My course is $200,
Okay.
199, so it doesn't really make that much money that fast. But last year, I made around 45K just by selling the course, and it depends on months. Like one of the months,
And that's from you doing it part-time.
yeah,
Right? I know you're trying to downplay your your achievement here, but that's you doing it part-time and
yeah,
very passively, not shoving it down people's
right,
throat.
yeah,
And yeah, I mean it's I know it's the course itself is passive once it's out there, but there's also
hmm,
a lot of work that went into building it, right?
right.
I am curious, why did you decide on going directly to selling your own course versus like teaching on Skillshare first? Because that's something I'm kind of grappling with.
I think there'll be more control of your pricing and your positioning when you are selling on your own platform. I never really sell on Skillshare or Gumroad. I just never have done that.
Mhm.
But I feel like if you put it up there, you're competing with like hundreds of other courses. So if I kind of direct them just to my own platform, they can kind of focus on my own content. I can price it a little bit differently. My course is like 199, which is different from the price point Skillshare and Gumroad is. And I
Yeah.
think there's certain different expectation when people are paying different levels of money. So like people pay for, I don't know how much is Skillshare per month, like
Like
or 10.
99 per year or per
Yeah,
year.
yeah. So when they pay that, they kind of have a different expectation on the quality of the stuff in there. I feel like I wouldn't make as much if I selling on those platforms. And I actually also don't know that if I get to know and retain the contact who bought the course if they are just
Right.
signing up for Skillshare. Yeah.
The analogy I can think of is as a artist illustrator is like uploading your design to Spoonflower or
Hmm.
Redbubble and making it passive. Like they're doing the marketing for you, sort of,
Hmm.
because you're part of
Yeah.
a marketplace and you get a cut. From my experience, just having my own like website, people are
Yeah.
spending more. I get
Yeah.
a higher margin, but
Yeah.
then we're also responsible for marketing
Right, right. Yeah.
or
So
seeing
it's a little bit hard
it off.
to start it in your own
Mhm.
platform. But I think at the end it worth it because you get to have total control of what you want to do, like the course you want to offer. And you can kind of marketing in your own way.
Would you ever want to do this full time?
I still enjoy my day job a lot, so it's
Okay.
not something that I just want to give up. And I think stability of having a day job with with benefit and stuff, I think is still very very important. So I can do it on the side, and I can really just focusing on providing values. Can kind of have control over what I want to do instead of the scarcity mindset. I never really got
Mhm.
into that because it's not something that if I don't make enough this month, I'm done. So I can allow myself to have a few months of of lower sell or maybe even no sell at all. Like might not be the greatest feeling, but I'm not gonna be really desperate and feeling really scarcity and start to affect my overall
Yeah.
well-being, mental well-being. Because I can say with honesty, this year the sale is a lot slower than last year. I think just because of the circumstances,
People
people
are
are
not in
starting to,
lockdown anymore. Yeah.
yeah, not a lot of people are doing that. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I do feel a little bit burned out in the beginning of the year, so I wasn't as aggressive doing YouTube content as I was before.
Yeah.
I still try to put out content every week, but they're now all like really well scripted, constructed videos. Sometimes it's just me doing a painting, talking
Yeah.
over it.
I'm with
So
you there. I've definitely
yeah,
felt burned out this year
yeah,
after doing it weekly for, we've only
hmm,
done it for, a year and a half, but
yeah,
this is also not my main job, but it's time
yeah,
consuming.
yeah. It's
And
difficult.
but it's encouraging to see your, just even watching that graph, like you were flat. I mean, if you zoom in there, it's flat, but it's, your daily sub increase is still like higher than what I have now. But it's nice to see when you zoom out that if you just persist, it does pay off after a
Hmm.
while. And YouTube, I think it's still growing as a platform. Do you have any advice for an aspiring artist?
Yeah, I think definitely do something that you really like. I mean, it sounded like a cliche, but if it's not something that I really like, I probably wouldn't able to persist through a couple of years like these. And and I'm still looking forward to continue doing it. And so definitely find something you're passionate about if you're going to do YouTube. I think consistency is definitely the key here. And when I say consistency, it's not just like putting up something weekly, is to consistently trying to dig into the subject that you're really passionate about and just bring out that value every single time you put. Not everything you put out is going to go viral. Like it
Mhm.
definitely didn't happen to me because there's so many successful story of somebody started a YouTube channel a couple months, they hit tens of thousands or like a million subscribers. That's always being promoted because it's big. People like to see that kind of successful overnight story. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important to kind of feel a little bit grounded that that's not going to happen to most of people. If it happened to you, great. I'm not going to say never going to happen. That might happen, but don't count on that. Don't put out a video say this video is gonna go viral for sure, and you're just
Mhm.
staring at that, it didn't go viral, and just feel really
Yeah.
deflated because that happens a lot of time to me as well.
Yeah. And you,
And sometimes the things that I don't expect it will go viral, somehow a lot of people start watching it. You can try to study your audience, but you can never really know your audience fully and learn from experience, like what video does well, like what type of work when you put on Instagram does well. Try to do more of that, or try to understand why people like that, or is there's more you can get off from this. So I made a video about how to paint loose, I think last year, and that video goes like goes goes viral because I
yeah.
just because a lot of feedback I got is people want to paint loose, so I did a subject on that, and that get a lot of views. So I try to go tangent on that, so maybe I can pick out one specific thing and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
That
those
was a
kind of
great video, by the way. That was
yeah.
another one I watched. And also one about skin tones. I think you have
Mm-hmm.
one of the best videos on painting skin
Right.
tones in
Okay.
watercolor too.
Thanks.
Can you share how people can find you?
My channel is Cafe Watercolor. You can probably find it when you search in YouTube, and yeah, and my website is also Cafe Watercolor, one word. And yeah, you can find me there. You can sign up there, and information about my course is also there as well. And again, I'm working on a membership program, and that's for me to be able to interact with students in a more personal way, so you can kind of feel like you're in a physical workshop without actually being there. So I'm probably going to build it on Discord. I already did a
Nice.
test with few students, and it's working pretty well, and I got everything set up. So sometimes there's some technical stuff I still need to straighten out, but for me that's going to be the future, that this instructor can give workshop that way.
All right. Thanks, Eric, for your time. Check his channel and his course out. I'll put all the links in the video description and then probably on screen too. So
Thanks.
we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you.
Bye.